Have you ever looked at your life from the outside and thought, everything seems fine, so why do I feel nothing? You wake up, you move through your day, you talk to people, you smile when you're supposed to, you laugh at the right moments, and yet inside something feels hollow. Not sadness exactly, not pain in a dramatic way, just a quiet emptiness, a numbness, like the lights are on, but no one is really home. If that feeling feels familiar, you're not broken, and you're not alone. People who feel dead inside often struggle to explain it, even to themselves, because how do you describe an absence? How do you talk about something that isn't there anymore? It's not that life is unbearable, it's that it feels distant, muted, as if you're watching your own existence from behind a thick glass wall, unable to fully touch it or be touched by it. And the most confusing part is this. Many of these people once felt deeply, intensely, too deeply perhaps. Psychologically, emotional numbness is rarely the beginning of the story, it's the aftermath. It's what happens when a mind and nervous system have endured too much for too long. When emotions were overwhelming, unprocessed, or unsafe to express, the brain learns a powerful survival strategy: shut it down. Feeling dead inside is not a failure of emotion, it is protection. Think about the person who learned early that their feelings didn't matter. Maybe they grew up in a home where emotions were dismissed, minimized, or punished. Don't be dramatic. You're too sensitive. Stop crying. Over time, that child learns that feeling is dangerous, that expressing pain leads to rejection or shame. So the mind adapts, it numbs, it disconnects, not because it wants to, but because it has to. Or consider someone who lived through repeated disappointment, broken promises, betrayals, losses that never fully healed. At first they felt everything. The pain was sharp, the grief was loud, but eventually feeling became exhausting. So the mind did what it does best to survive. It dulled the volume. It turned down joy along with sorrow. Because when you numb pain without guidance, you also numb pleasure. This is why people who feel dead inside often say things like, I don't feel sad, but I don't feel happy either. They may function well. They may succeed. They may be dependable, responsible, admired even. But inside there is a sense of emotional flatness. Days blur together. Achievements feel empty. Relationships feel distant, even when they are close. Psychologists call this emotional blunting or anhedonia, the reduced ability to feel pleasure. But behind the clinical terms is something deeply human, a system that learned it was safer not to feel than to feel too much. Often these people were the strong ones, the ones who had to hold it together, the ones others leaned on, the ones who didn't have the luxury of falling apart. They learned to suppress their needs, their anger, their grief, and suppression works for a while. Until one day, instead of emotions leaking out uncontrollably, they disappear entirely. Feeling dead inside is also closely linked to dissociation, not the dramatic kind shown in movies, but the subtle, everyday disconnection from the present moment. Zoning out, feeling unreal, feeling like life is happening to someone else. This happens when the nervous system stays in survival mode for too long. The body's there, but the mind pulls away to protect itself. And here's the painful irony. The very thing that once kept you safe now keeps you stuck. People who feel dead inside often blame themselves. They think they're lazy, unmotivated, unappreciative, broken. They compare themselves to others who seem passionate, excited, alive. And they wonder, what's wrong with me? But the truth is, nothing is wrong. Something happened. Something taught your system that feeling was dangerous. This numbness often hides unresolved grief. Not just grief from death, but grief from unmet needs, lost versions of yourself, relationships that never were what you needed them to be, grief for the childhood you didn't get, the love you didn't receive, the safety you had to create on your own. When grief is never acknowledged, it doesn't disappear. It goes underground, and numbness becomes its language. People who feel dead inside may also struggle with identity. When you've spent years suppressing your emotions, you lose touch with what you like, what you want, who you are. Decisions feel heavy. Desires feel distant. You may say, "I don't know," a lot, not because you don't care, but because you genuinely don't feel connected enough to know. Relationships can feel especially confusing. You may crave closeness, yet feel nothing when it arrives. Or you may avoid intimacy altogether because it highlights the emptiness inside. You might worry that you're incapable of love, when in reality, your heart is simply guarded by layers of protection it never learned how to remove. And yet, beneath the numbness, there is still life. This is the part that often goes unsaid. People who feel dead inside are not empty. They are full of unprocessed emotion, unacknowledged pain, unexpressed needs. The numbness is not absence, it is containment. Healing does not begin by forcing yourself to feel again. It begins with safety, with gentleness, with permission. Your nervous system needs to learn that emotions will not destroy you anymore, that you are no longer trapped, that you don't have to survive the same way you once did. Psychologically, reconnection happens slowly, through moments of presence, through noticing small sensations, through allowing tiny emotions without judgment, through rest, through expression, through being seen, sometimes for the first time. It may begin with something as simple as realizing that numbness itself is a message. It's your mind saying, "I protected you for as long as I could." And perhaps the most important realization of all is this: feeling dead inside does not mean you are incapable of feeling alive again. It means your system has been overwhelmed, not broken. The return of feeling doesn't come like a flood. It comes like a thaw, slowly, unevenly, sometimes painfully, sometimes beautifully. At first, emotions may feel awkward, unfamiliar, even frightening, but with patience, they become signals again, guides, proof of life. And one day, without realizing when it happened, you notice something small, a moment of warmth, a laugh that reaches your chest, a song that stirs something, a tear that finally falls, and it surprises you. Not because it hurts, but because it reminds you that you're still here. If you feel dead inside, let this be your reminder. Numbness is not the end of your story. It is a chapter written by survival, and survival can evolve. You are not weak for feeling this way. You are human. You adapted. You endured. You protected yourself the only way you knew how. And now, gently, patiently, you're allowed to come back to life. Not all at once, not perfectly, but honestly. And that is more than enough.